In order to use this bonnet in historic motorsport, I need to get rid of the Kadett E GSI bonnet vents, which have been mounted in it the wrong way round. This car will run as per its homologation papers, and these certainly weren't homologated for the Kadett D. And I think the wording of the rules for non-homologated cars kind of makes it clear. The car must retain its original silhouette of the period in which it originally competed and show no additional air duct scoops or blisters. So you can see what the spirit of the regulations is from that. That's not the bit that actually applies to this car as it's running as per homologation, but these vents were not homologated with the car. I chose this bonnet to use for my rally car project because I didn't want to be drilling holes for the bonnet clips in an otherwise perfect bonnet. So I don't mind doing these repairs, and it allows me to work in some metal from the bonnet that was on the very first Kadett that I ever had on the road. So there's a little bit of a sentimental thing going on here, and although this bonnet may be a little bit of a compromise, I'll be really glad to be carrying a little bit of that car with me. I'm taking off the spoilers and wheel arches that are fortunately homologated with this car. I've trial fitted them, I've done my drilling on them in advance of painting the car, and I just want to get them out of harm's way because I'm going to be doing some welding on it now and other body work. It's great having these tapped and threaded properly so they can go on and off relatively easily. But I'm glad all that handling isn't going on fresh paint. Stand back. There's quite a lot of work to do on this area around the wheel arch. There'll be a bit of filler. I'll probably put the arch on and off as a guide, make sure I'm getting the level of the repairs right. And we'll put this spoiler away now as well. So I have to remove the locking mechanisms from the bonnet. So just cut off a little bit of this pin and drive it out, and we'll take this latch off. So there must be no hindrance to third parties being able to access the engine bay. Cleaning off the edge of the cuts that were made in the bonnet so I can get some welding in there. Do that top and bottom. So you can see those vents were basically just putting cold air in to the top of the suspension mounts. I do believe there would be quite a lot of air pressure up at the back of the engine, and letting that out might have been a more beneficial thing in a modified car here. But actually, with those vents being used as scoops, you probably just had air meeting air, or you're actually the hot air coming out into your slipstream the wrong direction. So this is the bonnet from my first Kadett, and I'm just roughly putting it over the holes where those vents were placed, and just cutting the metal from that in roughly the same position, and it should have whatever bit of a curve it's supposed to have in it, and then I'll cut that out. I would have liked to have used this bonnet, but spent a bit too long outside, and it was already repaired with bits of a non-Kadett D bonnet, so it wasn't very original anymore anyway. So it's not perfect metal, to be using, but I think I'm going to get away with it. I was just about to throw this out and I saw that the rubber stops, which are missing from the bonnet I'm keeping, were still on this one, and also that spring that guides the bonnet's position in the center. I could leave that in actually, so not all the pressure is on my pins, because it doesn't actually restrict the opening at all. So there you go. Just cleaning down that. I've just cut these oversized completely, and I'm going to hold them over the openings in the bonnet and mark them up and cut them. So whatever bit of a curve should be right in that. And I'm going to scribe this really hard. I want a very accurate cut, so I'm not even using a marker, because this is a challenging job to put this into a flat panel. I'm sure it won't be perfect, but I need to get it good enough to satisfy myself, I suppose. So the angle grinder is switched off at the moment. I'm just using that handy speed chuck. Turn it back on again now. And start cutting away. Again, I'm not using that tin snips that I normally use, because that does put a bit of a twist in the panel. There'll be the least amount of distortion using this cutting disc. Now, placing it over, and it should fit through. Did you ever play with shapes and one of those spherical balls that you popped them through when you were a kid? My friend Simon became a bit of a legend. Couldn't see the point in this when he was a kid, so he just opened the sphere and put all the pieces inside. That's your out of the box engineering thinking. Anyway, that's the right piece for there now. Switched off at the wall this time. It is handy now for changing over different abrasives quickly. Back on again. And what I'm going to do is I'm putting a little bit of an angle on the edge, both on the repair piece and on the bonnet. Now I'm just taking off the paint around the edge, but I've put like a 45-degree angle on the two, so it's allowing a little bit of space for the weld to sit in, and so we don't have a sharp edge with very little weld in it. This should prevent it cracking at any stage in the future. So just using a couple of magnets there to get myself started. That level is kind of handy. It has a couple of magnets underneath. Just raising the bonnet, and that means I could just get my hand in underneath and manipulate the repair piece up and down a little bit, just matching the curve that should be there. I won't get this perfect, but the idea is to use as little filler afterwards as possible. I was debating with myself whether to only do a few spot welds and then just filler all along, but I kind of got drawn into it and ended up just putting lots and lots of little tacks in it. I got the other side going so I could switch from one side to the other, allowing for cooling, so I didn't work on either one for a very long period, again to just prevent distortion. And working a couple of spots on one side of the piece and then over back the other side and then over to the other side of the bonnet altogether. coming together anyway. I grind down all the welds then flush, and because they've gone into a little V shape between the bonnet and the repair bit, they should hold nice and tight. I'm just scuffing up the paintwork around it for the filler to bond to, just covering a little bit of distortion beyond the edge of the join. So that's why I extended the scuffed area, and then start sanding it down. The thing is, if this irritates me at a later stage, the bonnet's a very easy thing to replace. And I just get some paint on it now, because it's going to be sitting a while before I do more body work. But this has kind of led me into the beginning of refinishing the car. The bodywork has begun, and thus the big transformation.